big ride on my way down here to Glendale Cemetery. They're doing actually being hosted by the Akron Municipal Courts. They're doing a tribute to a Civil War veteran. I am a veteran myself, so I'm down here paying my respects to this tribute. To, I believe the guy's name is William P. Buckley. Is that your first name right? William P. Buckley. In 1820 something. So we can go down here and see what's going on. See what this looks like. Army veteran myself, so I'm gonna check this guy out. Show some respect. So my grandfather down here, he fought World War II. Got two of my elders. They were Navy men. Ronnie and Donnie Henderson. What's up, security? What's going on? This is where they hosting the event at? Yeah, the ceremony. It started already?
I don't start till 11:30.
11:30. Okay.
Up, and that's 7th Street on the left, all the way out, and you're gonna park back there.
Okay. All right. I appreciate it, bro.
You know it.
Good seeing you.
Always, you too.
Yes, sir. This is the building. I may be the only brother down here. It don't look like there's a lot of people, but I'm coming to see what's going on here. So ride through the Glendale Cemetery. Majority of all my relatives are resting. Supposed to be walking tour after the ceremony, so we get to. I'm not sure what to expect, so you guys just tag along with me. Yeah, so I'll tell y'all one thing. So I'm a video producer. Remember when I first got started, I used to work with Chris Miller, was an amazing dude, really helped me launch my passions in the right direction. But this area right here, the cemetery, first time I ever came down here, we did a movie night. Big old screen. Vendors was out selling popcorn and candy and juice and hot chocolate and man, I'm gonna have to pull up that old video I got and add it to this thing so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. Did a movie night in here, and I'm telling you, we did that for like 3 years straight, and every time it got bigger and bigger. Every time, and man, it was fascinating. I mean, and when it get dark out here, man, it's dark out here. Thankfully, you know, we came equipped. We had the lights, the screen, the audio stuff. You know, it was a real nice event. Man. I don't remember what we watched, but it was well received. A lot of people out here. Cemetery doing movie night. Now look at this statue. What in the world is this? Who is this dude? Look at this dude. Who is this? J.R. Booker. Are you kidding me? My alma mater, where I graduated high school from. That's him? John R. Booker? Look at Merle. Man. Wow. This is where, I guess they started up here. Cyberlink. Hardy. Hardy. They got statues of themselves put up a long time ago. Wow. Kraus. Kraus is an elementary school. Y'all remember Kraus? Wow. Look at this. Who knew? Cemetery. You know what went down here. For a tribute. Learn some more information about William P. Butler. So crazy. In front of us, Master at Arms. Here's the chapel down here at the Glendale Cemetery. Look at those letters. Yeah, I got a problem with statues. Didn't even realize it until one day. What a tour.
And if there are veterans here today, I'd love for you to stand and maybe say the word sir. And if that's the thing today. Thank you.
Right here in the United States Navy, worked in the Naval Consolidated Brig, created mines, everything.
Thank you, sir.
I am an Army veteran, communications.
So we're here to pay tribute to Lewis Buckley.
It's white oak. He used what he could, but then bought all new white oak. Set up actually down there. He had a tent set up where he held a workshop for a week. Had people come in who wanted to learn about timber framing, and he reconstructed that. No nails, no anything, in the fashion that it was done back in 1883. So the bell was brought down. The bell, it's a 700-pound bell. It was made by the Verdon Company back in 1883. It was cast by the Verdon Company down in Cincinnati. They're actually still in business. So when we restored that, they came up, crated it up, and hauled it down to Cincinnati. They had it for 3 months,
and they completely restored it. It's beautiful. It's just shiny, gold. It's a beautiful bell. And they also, we had a lot of work of getting electric run up into the towers. Got big electrical panels inside of it now. So the bell is it's a electrical clapper. So it actually does ring the bell, but we do it by this now. So nobody in there don't have to climb up there and do that. So So yeah, we're very proud of the
You're so
restoration.
powerful. Yeah, that is so cool.
Yeah. So
yes.
So and again, like with this, we had funding left over from the donations. That too has a nice endowment account that will continue to do the restoration if needed and any repairs that are needed. So we use that for. We actually have weddings in here. It's a beautiful site for weddings. Typically, we get them in the spring or in the fall. We've had a couple this fall. Actually, it's a beautiful site for it, and we'll ring that bell as that's requested as the new bride and groom come out of the chapel. So, and then we also use it for funeral processions. So, as a funeral procession comes in, we have another a slower, respectful. Tone here. So it's once every 10 seconds. So as the procession slowly comes in, I think it's a very respectful, and it goes on for about 5 minutes or unless we stop it. So as the procession slowly comes in, the bell slowly tolls. Yeah, so we love our bell tower. Love to show it off when we can. So. And then, of course, the Caretaker's Lodge, we talked about the Ladies Cemetery Association back then. They wanted a place for the superintendent to be able to stay here to keep an eye on the cemetery. So they raised the funds to build what's known as the Caretaker's Lodge. And right now, actually, my caretaker, the head groundskeeper, Ray, you may see him here, you may not, but great guy. He's been here for many years. And he lives on the second floor. The second floor is an apartment. It was converted to an apartment years ago. And so we have plans to restore that. That's next on the list. This was a few years ago. That was back in 2017. And when I say we, myself and the Board of Trustees are looking to hopefully raise some funds to restore. The bones are good. It's a phenomenal building, stone structure. But windows, interior, things like that, we want to restore it and put it to some use, either a museum, historical museum, something along those lines. So we're still considering what we want to do with it, but hopefully within the next 5 years or so, we'll get to move forward with restoring that structure also. So, okay, all right. So this is Mausoleum Road. A lot of the founders. Industrialists, a lot of the rubber barons have family monuments here. I did a little piece on some of these. So that's Frank Waters there. He was a Yale graduate of the School of Law, one of the most successful trial lawyers in the country. Was part of the law group Waters, Andrich, Wetzel, and Maxon, you probably know. I mean, I know Andrich and Wetzel are still in existence today, I believe. Wetzel sounds familiar, right? Yeah. So he was one of the originators of that group. He lived in North Hill. He had 8 acres in North Hill, and on Olive Street, him and his wife had a beautiful home that overlooked the valley. If you go right across the bridge.
I think the address 161.
175.
175 East Glenwood.
That could be it.
But that Olive and Glenwood come together.
Yes. Olive and Glenwood, right there. It's called Waters Park right now. Yeah.
Another
He has a fascinating story about Waters Park.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you look at the front door, It's got this beautiful bronze sculpture. And if you get up real close, there's a ribbon that says, "In memory of our loving daughter." It gives her name. If you look it up, she is really high socialite in Akron, turn of the century, early 20s. And she married a millionaire from New York, moved to New York and died the next year. All they said was from a long illness, so probably TB. But I've taken pictures of that mausoleum and it's just gorgeous. But if you notice, I think the sculpture is of his daughter.
It's of his daughter, yes. I'm
And
glad
if you
pointed
notice,
that
she's
out.
got her hand on the door handle and she's going into the mausoleum. So it's really a sad story.
If you want, we can walk up closer to him if you want.
I've been
but,
up there.
Hey,
I just wanted to share
that's a
that.
great point. That's a great piece of history from that right there. Yeah.
I grew up on North Hill. High-powered artillery.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
No, we don't do barrels in the mausoleums. Now, we do have contact with the family, but some of the interiors of these mausoleums weren't made for the caskets of today to be able to hold them. We actually, it's funny, we're right here, the Warner Medallion Rowley. We kind of found out that the hard way. A few years ago, the family had a death in the family. They wanted the person buried in the mausoleum with the ashes of her husband. And unfortunately, and the discussion was, well, we don't know if we can make this happen. We've got to check the inside of the mausoleum. And when we checked it and opened up the interior doors, the slate shelving had disintegrated. So, but what we were able to do, and the family was fine with that. They kind of expected that. I'm getting too many details, but eventually just we couldn't do a full barrel in there. They cremated, and we were able to put the remains in there. I actually had someone come out and had to build a new shelf in there, and we were able to have her buried with her husband. It. We can't make any guarantees. We'll take a look at it. And actually, as we come up here to the Robinson Mausoleum, this is one family that I do still have contact with, and there are a couple crypts in there that are still available. All right, let's see. He worked for the Schumacher Milling Company, and he returned to the clay products and became the head of what was known as the Robinson Clay Company. So I think a lot of the underground sewers in that were clay, and a lot of it came from the Robinson Clay Products Company. Was also president of the Second National Bank and one of the directors of Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. He lived on, if you know over on East Market Street, the Steinway home. That was his original home. He built that mansion. He lived in there until he passed away. Then it, down through the years, the piano company moved in there, and then some other things right now.
They call that Millionaire's Row.
Yes. It was one of the last mansions remaining in that area. Yes. Mustill. Frederick Mustill operated a grocery store at Lot 15. We've been fortunate all over the last few years. It's been actually a pretty good day. Last year, the Held Mausoleum, Akron Trust Company. Good. Kind of mentioned in your history about the bank here at Akron. So, Edward Held organized the Akron Trust Company. the first banking institution. He was also president of the Central Savings and Trust here in Akron. Looking into his interesting thing, not interesting, but his granddaughter is also in there. She was unfortunately brutally stabbed by her husband back in 1972. Carmichael Mausoleum, stonemason started the Carmichael Construction Company. Built some of Akron's largest industrial buildings, including the original Firestone plant, Second National Building, the Howe Hotel, and also the Fortune. This is that brook that we talked about. You can still see the bridge, and then it kind of came. The brook ran along the fronts of the mausoleums, and you can see as the mausoleums kind of turned, the brook came across here, where the sewer is, and then turned and kind of wound up there. So these are the footbridges that were over the Willow Brook. The explosions were down there closer to the in front of the office building and the caretaker box.
I thought they were really extensive.
Well, it came up towards the Robinson Mausoleum, because that mausoleum on the interior did sustain a little bit of damage, but the cemetery proper, as we go, didn't affect that. But yeah, that whole road in front of the office and the caretaker box is gone. Gone. Yeah.
I was in Akron that morning.
That's 78, 70.
77.
So
Strike at a small rubber company. The guy climbed in and he opened the vats. Solvents got into the sewers. The next morning, the sewers all through Central Akron started exploding.
Oh my God.
Nobody killed it. This was probably damaged more than anything
yeah,
else.
it's kind of a low point here, and where it was a lot of the chemicals and the gases kind of collected here and just waiting for a spark. I don't know if they know what that was, if a car drove through here and backfired or something, or
Flipping sewer leaks 30 and 40 feet in the air.
and so, but something, and yeah, all the road kind of after that curve was just destroyed.
They said the only casualty was a score.
They built churches, schools, and one of their trademarks was all the stonework that they did. So it's very fitting that the mausoleum is built that way also. The lions represent strength, courage, power as memorials, and they were designed to. One of the things for stone, water is probably the worst enemy for stone, the freezing and the thawing. But those were built, if you look at it, everything is built, when you see the paws, everything is built to flow off of there so no water sits to be able to cause any damage to the stone. Yeah, there's a male with a female cub and a female with a male cub. Company here, and it was just down on Glendale, the Daily Monument Company. Maybe you remember it. It was right down the road on Glendale, and interesting to me,
Like I mentioned, I was 32 years with the fire department. But let's move over here. Let the car go through. The Daily Monument actually burned down, and I was actually one of the first responders on that call, trying to do what we could to save it, but it's already lost. But and then he moved his business out to a place out in Brimfield, and I don't know if he's still in business now or not, but it's been a while since I had contact with him. But yeah, a lot of the monuments that you see here were done by the Daily Monument. We have an extensive family where it's kind of interesting when you look, it goes back into the hillside a bit also. There's quite a few barrels actually in there.
Is that the original mausoleum to the cemetery? First one built?
That's a good question. I don't know if I can. It was 1860. I don't know if it was the original. I don't know if it was the first one.
Have to be, right? Yeah.
It's definitely one of them.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it was.
Yeah, he waited long enough.
He waited a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cemetery was 1839 and 1860. He's one of the first 5 trustees of the city of Akron, the city. A staunch Democrat. He was chairman of the Democratic State Central Committee, so probably wouldn't have been too happy with the recent.
I wasn't too happy in 1860.
And of course, he established the cemetery. His oldest son, Alexander, the one that didn't pass away young, went on to a successful business career, owned flour mills, and owned the mills that later became what was known as the American Cereal Company and eventually Quaker Oats.
Buckley was also a Democrat. Something I'd read about and I didn't until recently understand what it was. If you read Civil War in the newspapers and such, you'll see announcements for meetings of the Union Party. But what the Union Party was sort of a short-term political party composed of the Republicans and the war-supporting Democrats. Buckley was involved in that also. Yeah, most of although when you read about what the community did right on
So we actually had an available spot here. So years ago, back in 2009 and 10, as the death industry started moving towards a lot more cremations, we wanted to make sure that we had a lot of options for people who were choosing cremation. So we built this back in 2011, and on it's one. It's going to eventually be 3. This is called a columbarium, and on either side of it, when we constructed that one, you can kind of see behind those hedges are. We put the foundations in for 2 more. So we're hoping within the next couple of years, my plan is to have 2 more constructed, one on each side of that.
there are quite a few beer prepared.
I don't know exactly which one. I think there may be one up there. There's one up on the hill over here also, but yeah, could be right. Along the other side of this is called the Great Meadow, and Swan Lake used to be here. This used to be a lake right here. So we do have a lot of available space that we'll be developing at some point through here. But yeah, on the other side of this, there are quite a few Perkins family lot, Pfluger, remember the Pflugers, fish bait tackle, a lot more. It's not just the mausoleums. As you go through Glendale, and there's other mausoleums here. So you see up there's the Hill Mausoleum,
There's some other mausoleums that are kind of speckled throughout, but this is the
Car
main
coming.
home with the mausoleum.
There's a car coming.
But then of course there's others very famous Akronites that don't have mausoleums, but they have large family plots. Yes, so continuing the rural cemetery movement of having events throughout here, we did host, working with the city for a few years, the ballet would come in here and set up. And we're hoping to work with them and get that back here, but they had to cut back a few years ago and drop. They would do 4 shows throughout the summer, their summer dance series, and we were part of it for a few years, but they had to drop it back to 3, and unfortunately we were the ones that were dropped. Yeah, I think it was just a little bit more difficult, a little more costly for them to come in here and set up here. Logistically, it was more difficult in the middle of a cemetery, where some of the other parks that they go to, like Hardesty Park and Firestone Park, it's much easier for them to set up there. So, but the parking here was tough. We worked with the city. We had trolleys, so logistically, yeah, we'd have the trolleys pick up people and trolley them up here. And it was a great event, and people loved it. They absolutely loved it.
Wonderful.
And we're hoping to maybe get that back at some point. So
We with Chris Miller, I don't know if you guys familiar with Chris Miller. We did a lot of video equipment. We hosted like 3 of them
yeah, I know
movie
Chris.
nights.
Yeah, the movie
nights a year. Something
we
spectacular.
did not have that this year.
Yeah,
We did not have
right there
this
on
is
that
the,
slide, right
This is
there.
the first year in a few years. We
Yeah.
did not have that. They had it somewhere else.
Mhm.
We had to make some changes to some liability and things like that, and other organizations coming here that we're working through. But yes, we used to have free movie night here,
Yeah.
where they would come in and Chris Miller, and they'd set up have very family oriented. People bring in picnics, and they'd sit and they'd eat and watch a kid friendly movie here. Typically we'd do that in September. But yeah, that's another thing that we'd love to get back here. So these this is stuff I'm very proud of. So, when I first came here, we had these old maps, and these old maps had these little road names on them, as you see here. And so a few years ago, I wrote a grant, and specifically for us to be able to purchase some historic street signs to bring these streets back into place. So yeah, they're not at every corner, but they're some of our main corners. Another one there, and but yeah, I love our street signs. Family plots are laid out, so they'll typically have a large family monument with the name on it, maybe a little bit more information, and then the burials are smaller stones, flat stones, or called pillow stones, for the actual individual burials. So this is the Christie family plot. The brothers James and William founded the Akron Street Railway Company, and James was the first president of Firestone Tire and Rubber Company. George Bates was founded the second national bank. And he was mayor of the city of Akron from 1864 to 65. Oh yeah. And so the interesting thing was part of how
things that changed with cemeteries is, yes, back in the 1800s, people didn't move around so much, you know, so people that had the means, they would buy a family plot, and you see 2 or 3 generations here because people didn't move around. You just don't see that anymore. But Glendale is a great representation of how families stayed together back in the 1800s, early 1900s, and are buried together.
I wondered if you could point out, I've read it talked about and I've looked for it on the map and I just can't put it together with my mind where it's at. 3 things. St. Bernard's has their cemetery which is adjacent.
Yes.
That's far end up here.
Yeah.
And then there's
yes, it's in the corner, the northwest corner of the cemetery. It's fenced off. There's a fence that separates us. But yeah, they're adjacent to us. They touch us by the fence. But yeah, that's St. Bernard Cemetery that has, you get to it from South Maple Street.
The other two were in that same area, and that's what I'm getting confused. There was a Jewish cemetery or a Jewish allotment?
There's a Jewish section, which is up on the other side of the cemetery. It's our section 8. Section 18 is known as our Jewish cemetery. I'm sorry, our Jewish section. Yes.
And the third thing was the Potter's Field, and that was in the initial layout, and it said northwest corner, but then I see St. Bernard.
That is something we'd have to do more research on. Potter's Fields were basically areas for indigent and unmarked, just areas of burials, and they weren't very well documented.
There was a famous murder case in the 1800s, and the guy was found guilty and hung in downtown Akron at the jail.
Okay.
And they buried him in Potter's Field.
Yeah.
And they tried to bury him. The night that he was being buried, at the time there's local physicians who needed skeletons, and there were 3 different groups of young physicians who came and tried to steal the body. The caretaker drove off one group, he came back, drove off the second group, third group, then the first group came back, and the skeleton is still out there someplace in Akron, they said. But I just wanted to know where the Potter's Field was.
Well,
to get
not these. I think there are a few Potter's Fields. There were a few areas that were designated as, you know, areas where they were going to bury people and they weren't going to be marked. But yeah, that's an interesting part. And Glendale went through that, which a lot of cemeteries back in the 1800s, early 1900s, when medical research was, you know, trying to move in that direction of improving medical care. Doctors, they need the bodies, and so there was after the burial, try to steal the bodies. We have records here in Glendale of the stories, and it may be that one, but there's a couple that hit the paper, hit the news about bodies being stolen. Yeah. Oh, we walked right by, and I'm afraid nobody asked.
The rock.
The Samuel Lane monument with the rock. So there was a story years ago, back in I think it was early 1900s, that stone was a meteor that fell in the Talmadge area to a depth of 16 feet deep and was brought out, and that's in Samuel Lane, and I don't know how Samuel Lane came by it, but the story was that's a meteor. It's completely fabricated, but there was a story that was put in the news by this fella, and he was from the area here, and my understanding is he put it out on some British news, and it caught wind, and it just went like wildfire, and there's a meteor here at Glendale, and then he had to retract it, but the retraction was like a little thing. So the story continued even though there was a retraction. So there's the story of that being a meteor for Samuel Lane. And then Samuel Lane was a very prominent Akronite. He was a writer. He co-published the Summit Daily Beacon. He was sheriff 1856, 1875 through 1880. He was mayor from 1881 to 1882. So he was very. Yeah. You've read his book?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
He was always in my house as a kid, but he wrote the history of Summit County.
Right. So 50 years in Oakland, Akron, and Summit
It's
County.
fantastic. It's a great source for anything you want. Great place to start.
He was the source of a lot of my Buckley information.
In fact,
He went out to the gold fields after Buckley did. And then he wrote the book 50 years, and it has information on Buckley. But he also, in the late 1800s, had a newspaper column, 50 years in Akron, and he wrote much more about Buckley in the newspaper column. And his retelling the story as far as Buckley resigning from West Point in protest basically came to lame. What he said was that Buckley had told that to another officer the 29th before the Battle of Fort Cutter. And he sort of went into detail about
in the book it says he resigned from West Point due to FFV, which was dominant at the time at West Point. And I couldn't figure that out. I looked I found it about 3 or 4 months ago. FFV stands for First Families of Virginia. It's the
I read
elitist.
that. I didn't know
It
what
was
it
the
meant.
elitist.
That's good to know.
So,
Pavement here. I'll walk through the cemetery grounds. So watch your step. Okay.
Comrade dear, thy march is ended, all thy suffering here below. Go with angel guides attended to the throne of Jesus, go. For on that celestial camping ground thy bivouac is spread, and there, dear comrade, you shall rest till the angels sound reveille for the dead. For Almighty God is fair and just to all those who may seek his aid. Then let us rely on his judgment. If we do, we need not be afraid.
the Spicer family lot here. This is Minor Spicer. Actually, he was a major, so he went by Major Minor Spicer. So I always thought it was interesting, Major Minor. But he was one of the first settlers in the area that came to Akron. He was a major in the War of 1812. So, interesting little tidbit about cemeteries in Akron. I had mentioned in the chapel that J.D. Commons didn't want to bury his son over in the city cemetery that was known as Spicer Cemetery at the time. And Bookdale College was eventually chosen to be built on that site. So the original University of Akron was built on the grounds of the cemetery. So they moved all those bodies in the cemetery and they brought them here. So Glendale was a recipient of many of the burials from Spicer Cemetery when they stopped that and turned that into what became the University of Akron. And Minor Spicer was one of those that were moved over to Glendale from Spicer Cemetery. So it's his final resting place now, but it wasn't his first resting place, wasn't his final resting place. But so we're going to walk up through here and show you there's the GAR Memorial, the Grand Army of the Republic. That was given by the Buckley Post. And this is kind of our little Civil War burial section. We have Civil War veterans buried all throughout the cemetery, but this is, as far as the concentration of them, this is the main area. So again, watch your step. He was with the Akron Fire Department, which of course I just retired from. He was a captain with the Akron Fire Department at Station 2 over on Market and Exchange, and I was a I spent 2 years as a captain at that station also. So.
So that's really all as far as some history that I was going to talk about. There's again, like I said, there's some mausoleums speckled here and there throughout the cemetery, and this is one of them that we'll come up upon here in a little bit. That's the Land Carter. It's another street name that you see throughout the city of Akron, and that was, I believe, another pharmacist in the area. So we're gonna head down here. This will take us back by the Robinson Mausoleum. We'll be close to the chapel. That road up there goes up to. It's a kind of secluded little area. Little circle up there. Our section's P and Q. It's a lot of big hitters up there also. A lot of very prominent families from the area up there. And there's a Bierce up there. I think he was a attorney and a politician. I don't know if it's the same one that you may be referring to. There's a few Bierce throughout.
Like I said, that Bierce over there on the plain, they had a lot of things around his grave. And like I said, he was a general in maybe the War of 1812, but then he tried to invade Canada in the 1840s. It didn't go well. It didn't work out.
One of the interesting monuments up there, if you recall, the over Highland Square, the bucket shop. Louis Barodin, who ran the bucket shop. His grave is up there, and you know, we don't like to see liquor bottles or anything around the cemetery, but it's like the one place people will still come by and pay homage to him, and leave a beer can or beer bottle once in a while. So up there we don't mind it. What's that? Oh, I went to the bucket shop many times back in the day. Yeah, back in the 90s. Sure. Yeah, we're gonna miss that. Yeah.
The sound system in the it's a great little spot.
Oh yeah, great little spot, little basement down there, band playing.
On the table.
And the dancing on the table. Yeah, that's kind of what it was. I never got up on the table though.
So I have to say that this was a wonderful experience. Learned a lot of history about Akron. Seen some prominent people, a bunch of mausoleums, and war heroes. This was an awesome event. Yeah, this was awesome, and I'm glad I came, inspired by my wife. I was doubting it at first, but I'm glad I came. And I hope you guys enjoy this video. It's not your typical, but it's an awesome view.